Time now for the Sunday Talk, where we tap into the debate of the week. This week, professional provocateurs, from Milo Yiannopoulos to Ann Coulter. Is it showbiz, free speech, or just hateful?
I don't think I've been as sorry about anything my whole life.
When Milo Yiannopoulos defended pedophilia, he lost his book deal, speaking gigs, and his editor position at the alt-right site Breitbart. The line was drawn, but it wasn't his only offensive comment. On women,
feminism is cancer.
And on Muslims.
Why are we surprised that Muslims are blowing things up? That's what they do.
He's been given many platforms and loves it all.
The worst people on the very far left and the very far right all hate me. They all hate me.
Okay.
I think you're leaving out a lot of people.
But you're welcome.
Yiannopoulos has been dubbed the internet supervillain, but he has some competition.
We should invade their countries, kill their leaders, and convert them to Christianity.
Far-right commentator Ann Coulter is also notorious and now banned from some news shows.
Person who basically runs a business for herself fueled on hate speech and hurting people.
And now White House spokesperson Kellyanne Conway is being sidelined too after a few bogus claims like this terrorist attack that never happened.
And they were the masterminds behind the Bowling Green massacre.
She tries to book herself on this show. I won't do it because I don't believe in fake news or information that is not true.
There are provocateurs here too, on both the left and the right. Kelly Leach's campaign manager, Nick Kouvalis, had to quit recently after calling someone a traitor and a cuck, an alt-right term for emasculation, created such a firestorm on Twitter.
When Justin Trudeau says that, he is a white supremacist terrorist!
And some say the co-founder of Black Lives Matter Toronto should be banished for her comments. I'm joined by our panelists. Tasha Carradine is a talk radio host in Toronto. Stephen Marsh is a culture writer with Esquire magazine. And Elamina Abdelmahmoud is social media editor at BuzzFeed Canada. Going to start this one with you, Tasha. What do you think? I mean, should these people, should they be banned? Is it just showbiz? Should they be tolerated, just ignored? What should we do? Anything?
Well, I call it opinion porn because that's really what it is. It's the outrageousness of some of the comments. And I think you cross a line when you say things that are hate speech that would get you banned on my show. I think also if you say things that are wrong, if you misuse facts like Kellyanne Conway, I mean, how can you trust a commentator who is deliberately misleading? So those are two spots where I say that would equivocate to a ban. I think people have the right to free speech. There are lots of platforms that these people can go to. They can create their own platform. So in our media age today, even being banned on one show doesn't necessarily mean you'll be quiet.
Give them air or ban them?
Well, my trouble with them is always that it's not just the stuff that they say. The stuff that they say can be really hateful. But someone like Milo is such an expert at saying things and then just stopping just before the line, but because he knows how it's going to be received, how the people who are watching it are going to receive it. And so he says things, he sets it up, and then the people receive it, and then they go into a hateful tirade. And I just don't know what to do with that. I genuinely don't. Because on the one hand, I feel like they should have the free speech to say the stuff that they say. But at the same time, we know the consequences. We know they're dangerous, and I just absolutely hate that. I don't know what to do.
Stephen?
Well, the free speech thing, which they always bring up, is such a red herring. Because I mean, ultimately, there's no lack of platforms in this world, right? And I mean, people say whatever they want all the time. Free speech is not under threat because somebody stopped Milo Yiannopoulos from talking one time. I mean, my problem is that, you know, on the one hand, it's obvious that what we should do is ignore these people. On the other hand, we can't really ignore them because, like, the number one provocateur in the world happens to be president of the United States, right? And they do actually shift things. They do actually change the debate. So, you know, I would love to just deny them all exposure, but the world that we live in is one where they just constantly get more exposure.
Yep. Yeah, what impact do they have, do you think, Tasha?
Well, I think they reinforce pre-existing opinion. I don't think they're going to convert anyone with what they say. Left, you know, the alt-right or the regressive left, as it's called, the sort of polar extremes. I think that when people say these things, they're doing it for their own reason, which is mostly profit. They make a business out of it, like Ann Coulter, for example, has done very, very well. And people emulate that. They see that it works. So up-and-coming journalists, I think some also who are trying to get maybe into a very tough business, might go into this line because they say it works. That doesn't mean it adds to the conversation, though. It just, like I said, it makes people who already are ready to believe that stuff say, yes, I'm right, you're right.
I think it's changing debate in a much more complex way. I mean, Breitbart now is bigger than Huffington Post, right? It's huge. It's like a massive thing. And I mean, some of these arguments, like you can say, like someone like Yiannopoulos, he's just a pure provocateur, totally empty. Like, and once the provocation has gone away, there is no there. Like, you can't go and say, here's an argument that's even upsetting. But when you look at someone like Richard Spencer, who I would not put him in the same camp at all.
He's been called a neo-Nazi.
Yeah, I mean, he has a very conscious ideology of ethno-nationalism, which is subscribed to by leading members of the White House staff. I think we're duty-bound to examine those opinions.
But here's something I never feel we talk about, which is the origin points of these people. And so it's not like I'm not interested in the things that Milo has to say, but some might associate me with the left that has been, for a really long time, maybe the last 10 years or so, shaming people into not speaking things out loud. And so those people have gone underground, right? For the longest time, they've felt like they can't speak things. And so when Milo shows up, he's not just a person. He's like the new punk. To them, like, this person is saying the unsayable. And it's like not just like small attraction. He's a rock star.
Well, as a journalist, that's what I found interesting, because after the election, there was so much pressure on the media to like listen to the angry right.
That's right.
And they were invited everywhere.
Yeah.
Ann Coulter was invited everywhere. And now there's this pressure to not put those people on the air.
I think that you have to talk about what they say. That doesn't mean that they are the ones doing the talking. As we said, they can have platforms in a lot of places. Go to college campuses, start your own channel, Breitbart. There are places that will publish these points of view and give these people a platform, and that's fine because they have the right to free speech. But it doesn't mean that every single station owes them a platform. You can have a conversation about what they said on a particular show with other people, because it does change opinion. I agree in some ways, though I think more it reinforces, but it is part of our political discourse. We can't ignore it. No.
It seems that with Milo Yiannopoulos, the line was pedophilia. He could say all kinds of hateful things about women and Muslims, but
and everyone else. I mean, yeah.
But pedophilia, why is that the line?
Well, it's the absolute sacred line. It's the absolute taboo line. It's not even, it has nothing to do with intellectual discourse. It's just a purely biological reaction that everyone has to this.
Criminal,
and it's criminal, and it just brings up these like very deep gut feelings in people that means that, I mean, I don't feel any pity for him, because of course he was trying, I mean, it's ironic that the time he was trying to make a nuanced argument and actually had some expertise in it, that's what he gets crushed for. But if you're playing a game,
expertise, as he says he was assaulted.
Yes, like he actually has some insight from his personal life, right? So but if you're going to play the game of no nuance, don't be surprised when they come for you.
It's okay to be hateful of Muslims, though.
Well, I mean, you know what? In the case of Milo, it's a little bit different than in the case of Ann Coulter, because, like, to me, Ann Coulter is much more forward with this stuff. I think the most straightforward thing that I've read from Milo was that we should establish like a Western European culture and ban everybody else.
Right.
So he doesn't explicitly. I don't think I've ever heard him say anything specific about Muslims.
Well, we heard in our setup piece of him saying, "Oh, well, what else do they do?"
Also, that's
throw bombs.
enough for me. We're just going to have a Western and no one else. That's enough for me.
It's the same as the co-founder of Black Lives Matter, calling Justin Trudeau a terrorist, a white supremacist, saying very hateful things about white people. It's not acceptable either. There's on both sides of the coin. You have a lot of this. No, I'm sorry, it is. I think racism is racism, and if you're going to take it to that level where you actually try and incite hatred, which I would say that they probably have close to done, if not done, in some of the things they've said, that crosses a line. And it's not pedophilia. Pedophilia is a very specific line. I think children is that is a taboo subject, anything against children. But there are other lines too that you just don't cross.
I just would like to. I think there's a real false equivalence here, because I mean the thing you have to say is like, that the woman at Black Lives Matter, she's leading a radical movement, but she doesn't have any. She's not an elected official. Steve Bannon is chief of staff of the White House,
yeah, but
right?
Ann Coulter's not elected either.
Yes, Ann Coulter's not elected either, but she has a vastly greater platform.
It does seem that the people getting the most attention for being provocative these days are people on the right. Why is that?
I think a couple of reasons. First of all, I think journalism as a whole and the media does skew left. If you talk to journalists, polling's been done for many years, they tend to have more left-leaning political views, which can translate into less scrutiny of the left, more scrutiny of the right, because they disagree with it. I think that is probably a fact. But also now the right's in power. And so I think the right does deserve more scrutiny in a sense, because the alt-right now has a foothold in the Trump administration. That's something we've never seen before.
Yeah, I think the left has been, kind of culturally dominant for at least a good decade or so, maybe a little bit longer. Just in terms of having, control of institutions like the media and institutions like the universities. We've just had a better time in that particular space. And so it's more anti-power, right? Like it's more the resistance to be the Milos of the world.
Look, the left controls the institutions that you and I read, right?
Yes,
like,
that's true.
What David Frum calls the conservative entertainment complex is actually at the root of a lot of this provocation, which is that a lot of these right-wing guys figured out that it doesn't matter how outrageous what you said, as long as it was extreme, it got more hits. And you know, I think the other thing is we're also not talking about the fact that we're living in a media economy now where you can actually measure and register people liking your opinion.
Got to wrap up in just a moment, but I want to get a quick response from each of you. Is there an end in sight to this, or are we just going to keep getting more toxic? Elamine?
I think it's going to get worse. Yeah, absolutely. There's no good reason because there's no disincentive for these provocateurs to keep coming up. They have a platform. They can keep growing their platforms. We have some of them here in Canada. Yeah, I think it's going to get worse.
Yeah, I think until it's maybe financially profitable to be more middle of the road, it probably will get worse because eyeballs on screens translates into money, and that is a lot of what is fueling, I think, this rise in both the left and the right extremism.
I think when you tend to deviate from facts for fun, it can be quite entertaining, but the thing is the facts come back. And this happens over and over and over again where people develop these fantasies and then reality kicks in. And that's exactly what will happen here. It's happened before.
So there will be an end to all.
There will be an end, a very painful end.
Well, we'll see where this goes. Thanks so much to all of you.
Thank you.